Well, hey there. Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the channel on this Saturday afternoon. My name is John Campea, and this is an Ask Me Anything. And it's kind of just like open mic and everything else, but the floor is open. Ask whatever you'd like to ask about. You want to ask about movie stuff and TV stuff? Great. But you want to talk about some gear? You want to talk about some tech stuff? You want to talk about YouTubing? You want to talk about podcasting? You want to talk about any of that other stuff as well? Go ahead. Throw on in those questions and let's talk about it here. For those of you who are joining us live right now, had a little bit of a false start there. We tried to start the show and the mic wasn't working for some reason. Found out what the problem was, got it all fixed. We're good to go and we are now rolling. And hello to everybody in there. Good to see all you guys here. And I hope you guys are having a fabulous weekend as well. I know I'm already having a good weekend. Man, I got a couple things to talk about here. First of all, is how great Guardians of the Galaxy is doing. Now, we don't have the box office numbers yet, but man, you can't see it. I'll see if I can bring it up on the screen. Can I bring it up on the screen? No, you can only see part of it, but you can go and look at it yourself. Right now, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 on Rotten Tomatoes has an 81% critic rating, which is really good. It has a 95% audience rating. A 95% audience rating. It's been a beat since they were able to do that, be able to have a score that high and everything. So, I mean, it's doing really well. It's got an A cinema score, 95% audience score, 81% critic score. It's doing pretty damn fabulous at this point. And then we'll see. Now, they're projecting it's going to make over $100 million on its opening weekend, which would put it in between the opening weekend box office of Guardians 1 and Guardians 3. It's probably going to end up being the second biggest opening weekend of the year, behind Mario Brothers. So, yeah, I mean, considering how badly considering how badly comic book movies have been doing recently, considering how bad they've been doing recently, this is pretty good. This is a pretty good thing. And you know what? You know who's going to benefit most from a really successful, with the critics and with the audience, Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Flash is going to be the real big beneficiary there, because if people go see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and have as good of a time as a 95% audience rating and a cinema score rating suggest, then people are going to want to go back and watch another comic book movie. And that's been the problem with comic book movies in the theaters lately. They've gone to see a mediocre comic book movie. They're less likely to go see the next one. And then the next one comes out and it's mediocre. And now people are even less likely to go to the next one. So you had this, from Thor, Love and Thunder, which was a big step backwards from Ragnarok. I mean, I still enjoyed Love and Thunder. I don't care what anybody else says. I get the problems everybody has with it. Believe me, I do. To me, it was a big step backwards from Thor Ragnarok. But, a lot of people thought that was ho-hum. And so then, you got Black Adam come out. And then so the box office went down. Then you had Shazam 2 come out. So its box office went down a lot. I actually really like Shazam 2, but whatever. The box office is just trash. So if Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 can come out here, get another comic book movie with over $100 million opening weekend, and hopefully be well received, like it is right now with an 81% critic rating, 95% audience rating, then that will hopefully, fingers crossed, that will equal some maybe fairer skies ahead for movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, for movies like Flash, so on and so forth. So, here we go. Fingers crossed. And hey, listen, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, plug. Want to remind you guys that tomorrow, in Burbank, California, at the Flappers Comedy Club, me, the Real Rejects, Greg Alba, and Christian Harloff are doing the next installment of our movie club. Of course, last time we did this live event, we were talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Not such a good movie. This time we are talking about a fantastic movie in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And we hope that all of you guys will consider joining us for this. So there are two different types of tickets you can get for this event. Again, I'm plugging it here for a second, and you'll find them right at the top of the description of this video. If you live anywhere around the LA area or Burbank and you'd like to come to the event, I'm not sure how many tickets are left, but if there are, just go to the live tickets link that you'll see there. And if you live anywhere else in the world, there is a live streaming pay-per-view of it as well, and we hope that you will join us for that. So, okay, that's my plug for that. All right. Now, the main reason we are here today is to talk about your questions that you guys have been sending in. So let's not waste any time and get right to it here. We're going to start off here with Andy Brake. And Andy Brake writes, loved Guardians, best MCU film since Endgame. I disagree. I still think Shang-Chi is the better movie, but that's just me. Best MCU movie since Endgame. I have to disagree with you about Warlock. I thought it was an okay intro to a character going forward. Here's the problem. I hate when movies don't act like a movie, right? If you're going to bring in a character like Adam Warlock, and again, I love Guardians of the Galaxy 3, don't misinterpret me, but I hate it when movies treat their movie like it's just a setup for something else. That's bullshit, right? You got to treat your movie like a full and complete movie. And I think Adam Warlock, listen, I love the movie. I love it, but I really absolutely believe that Adam Warlock, and I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but I absolutely believe that Adam Warlock was one of the weak links. They just didn't do anything with him, and the little they did, I didn't really love the character all that much. I mean, I loved every other character in the movie. I loved Peter, loved Rocket, I loved the Gamora, I loved Nebula, I loved Drax, I loved Cosmo. I mean, I loved all the other characters, but that one to me was a little bit of a weak one. But, you know, that's just me. All right. Thanks for that, Andy. Next up, Miguel Zian writes, hey, John, hope all is well. All is well, thank you. I just recently picked up Kingdom Come, and from just the first chapter, I know I'm going to love it. I think it's a story that's relevant still today. Thoughts? Thanks. Oh, yeah, Kingdom. We've talked a lot over the years about Kingdom Come. By the way, some of the most iconic art ever in graphic novel history. Like, it's got that incredible style of the art. The whole thing about, and you know what? You're absolutely right. I find that the more the years that go by, Kingdom Come is becoming, unfortunately, more and more relevant. More and more relevant to our world today than ever before, to be honest with you. I absolutely adore it. We've talked about it a lot, many, many times. Actually, you know what? In the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths thing, they even had Brandon Routh kind of don the Kingdom Come Superman costume a little bit, right? But yes, you're absolutely right. If you guys have not, if any of you have not read Kingdom Come and you enjoy comic book stories, absolutely read Kingdom Come. It's one of the icons. It's one of the icon comic book stories that you should check out. All right. Next up, Fangblaze71 says, I don't know what James Gunn did for the VFX, but damn, every shot in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 looked amazing. Would be shocked if it's not nominated at the Oscars. Oh yeah, they did the visual effects in Guardians 3, Fangblaze, 100%. They looked banging. I mean, there's a couple things that still felt a little too CGI-ish for me, granted, but for the vast majority of the movie, I really thought the CGI looked fantastic. They did a great job with it. All right, Fangblaze also writes, I've been seeing videos of people saying Guardians 3 is doing good at the box office and videos of people saying it's flopping. What's your thought? Okay, so here's the thing. The box office numbers have not come in. We don't know what the opening weekend box office is. Now, the projections are it's going to be anywhere between 110 and 120. Okay? If it comes in at 110 and 120, that makes it the second biggest opening film of the year, which we're already 5 months into the year. It'll be the second biggest opening of any film for the year. It'll by far blow way past the opening of a lot of other movies. Look, anybody, because listen, if Guardians of the Galaxy opens to like $60 million, then I think some people are going to have to panic. And right now, we don't know what it's going to open to. We got to wait for tomorrow for the first box office reports to come in, the legitimate box office reports to come in. But if it opens to like $60 million, then yeah, they're going to be panicking a bit. But if, and this is a big if, okay, big conditional if here, if the movie opens to 110, 120 million dollars, if anybody tries to sell you that that's a flop, immediately ignore their channel, click the ignore this channel thing. That's just somebody with an agenda who's trying to push a spin. There'll be the same people who are trying to push that Avatar 2 was a flop. Remember that? Like in the first weekend of Avatar 2, all those people who like anybody who hates Disney and listen, I fuck Disney. Fuck the mouse. I don't give a shit about Disney. But there are people out there, but I'm impartial regardless. I can hate Disney for a lot of different reasons, but I'm impartial. Every project that comes out, I will judge it on its own merits. But there are a lot of people out there, and we saw this with Avatar 2, right? That first weekend, the first day or two that it was open, how many YouTube channels did you see? I actually made a video about it, and we took screenshots of all these YouTube channels that Avatar 2 is a disaster. Oh, flapping. They had pictures. You know how these people make these pictures with the Na'vi on the thumbnail with giant tears coming out. Oh, it's flopping. Avatar 2 is flopping, right? These are the same people. If Guardians of the Galaxy 2 opens for what it's being projected as 110 to 120 million, that's the second biggest opening of the year. That's a huge opening. That's fantastic. Not as big as Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but Guardians of the Galaxy 2 came out in a different context, in a different set of time, pre-pandemic and all this kind of stuff. But much higher than Guardians of the Galaxy 1 did, certainly 3 times higher than a lot of the other comic book movies that have come out. It's great. And anybody who tries to tell you that, let's, for argument's sake, say it opens with $114 million. Anybody who tries to sell you a bill of goods that says, oh, this is a massive flop for Disney, just immediately, never, ever, ever watch their stuff again, because they clearly have an agenda and they're trying to spin it. At the same time, let's say Guardians of the Galaxy opens to like $50 million. Anybody who tells you that that's great news and it's doing wonderfully, you might want to ignore them too, because they may very well have their own agenda as well. Now, look, a lot of people will say, and we talked about this on the show the other day, that, well, you know, let's say it opens to like, say, 115 million. I'm just pulling a number out of my ass. Let's say it opens to 115 million. Well, you could say, well, you know, John, that's not much better than what Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania opened with. Because if I remember correctly, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania opened to $106 million, which isn't a bad opening, by the way. It's a pretty good opening. And that movie went on to be quite disappointing at the box office. Actually, let me pull this up. Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Quantumania box office. I just want to see how much it made overall, because I know it was not great. So overall, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania didn't crack $500 million. It made $474 million. So you could say, well, John, if Guardians of the Galaxy opens to like 115, that's not much better than Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania that opened to 106. Yes, but the difference is Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania sucked. Well, I don't think it sucked, but it wasn't good. I don't think it was good. And that's the big difference. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was not good. And it's difficult for you to make a lot of money if your movie, I mean, it's not impossible. We've seen bad movies make money, but Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania wasn't good. And so it took massive dives in its subsequent weekends. People did not go out to see it multiple times. People did not have positive word of mouth to say about it. They weren't bringing out new people and new friends to come watch it with them. And ultimately, let's call it what it is. Ant-Man and the Wasp failed. I mean, it still made $100 million more than Black Adam did, but it still was what it was. But that was unusual. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has a 95% audience rating. People are raving about this film. People are loving, not everybody, all film is subjective, but people are raving about this movie. This movie is not going to go the same way as Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which was not good. Right? It wasn't good. So now, actually, I'm going to see if I still have this one graphic. I don't know that I do, but I'm going to see if I do. Where's my stuff here? Show graphics. Do I still have it? I think I still do have it. Okay. Let's go over this a second and ignore the that picture there. But I used this the other day. Look, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania opened with $106 million and couldn't even crack $500 million. Cinderella only opened with $67 million, but still went on to make over $500 million. Maleficent only opened with $69 million, went on to make $759 million. Aladdin only opened with $91 million and made over $1 billion. The Jungle Book made $103 million opening weekend and made almost $1 billion. We're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 making more opening weekend than any of those other movies. Now, am I saying Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to make $1 billion? I don't think we're in an era right now like we were in 2018, 2019, where 6 movies can make $1 billion. So no, I don't personally think Guardians 3 will make $1 billion, but it'll be fine. So what do I think about anybody who comes out and says, oh, Guardians 3 is flopping? Then clearly those people are showing their hand. They're tipping their hand. They're exposing themselves. They clearly have a pure agenda. Just ignore them. And if this movie opens to like $50 million, anybody who tells you that it's a raging success, they also have an agenda. If it makes $110, $120 million, they're off to a fucking good start. A lot of movies have hit the $1 billion mark that made way less than that opening weekend. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see what happens. All right, let's keep going on here. Thanks, Fangblaze. Next up, we've got Stefan DeLint Wouters, who writes, for the last couple of years, at least one Japanese anime movie a year gets some buzz at the specialty box office. What does the genre have to do to become more mainstream? It can't do anything to become more mainstream. It's just not a mainstream thing. And you know what? I think if you ask a lot of anime fans, I think they'll tell you that's exactly how they like it. A lot of fandoms don't like it when their niche fandom, and when I say niche, I don't mean it's tiny, but I'm just saying, it's not mainstream. A lot of fandoms of niche things don't actually like it when their thing becomes mainstream. Anime is never going to be a mainstream thing, I don't think. If anime was ever going to become mainstream, I think it would have done it back in the Dragon Ball Z days, right? And it's, guess what? Anime's doing just fine without being mainstream. Anime is doing just fine without being mainstream. And I think the fandom of anime is perfectly happy without it being mainstream. And so, yeah, anime is perfectly healthy. It's not going to be mainstream, and it doesn't need to be. I mean, that's just my take. I could be totally wrong about that, but that's just kind of my take on it. All right. J Master sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, J Master. Appreciate that, man. As somebody living in Seattle area and a huge Seattle Kraken fan, congratulations, by the way, on the Kraken. I am proud to say that I am the first that in the first round of the playoffs, the Kraken eliminated the Colorado Avalanche in Game 7, by the way. Stanley Cup champs. The Kraken is coming in hot. Go Kraken. You know, it's crazy how well, J Master, expansion teams are doing. Like, I remember when the Las Vegas Golden Knights entered the NHL, and didn't they go super deep in the playoffs, like in their first year, like their first or second year. And now the Kraken are out here on their making the playoffs in the first year, getting a first round playoff win in the first year. It's crazy. Congratulations to them. That is awesome. Let's see. Next up, we've got, that was J Master. Next we have Fangblaze, and Fangblaze is writing, a whole second. It's freezing here. Yes, Fangblaze again. Sorry, I thought I already did Fangblaze. Okay, Fangblaze writes, I love the Guardians' new ship, too. If I could pick any spaceship to live in, it might be that one. I love the design of the main cockpit area. I've always liked the design of their ships. I've always liked the design of their ships. I think they've always looked like, whether they've gone from the Milano. What was the first one? No, was the first, help me out in the live chat. Was the first one the Milano or the Benatar? I can't remember. Was the first, I know the two ships have been the Milano and the Benatar, but I cannot remember. The first one was the Milano, people are saying. Okay, so the first one was the Milano. Actually, I'm going to see if I can find a picture for you guys. Actually, I think that's the wrong thing I just clicked. Yeah. Give me 1 second here. Okay. So the Milano and so the Milano was the first one. The Benatar was the second one. I cannot remember. You guys who saw the movie, what was the name of the one in this movie? I can't remember what the name of the one in this movie was. If any of you guys remember. The Bowie. Oh, that's right. It was the Bowie. So I just a quick little thing here. So with the name of the first ship being the Milano, I just thought I showed you guys this here. Anyway, yeah. So there's I will always get a kick now whenever I see a Guardians of the Galaxy movie and they mention the name of the ship, the Milano. Anyway, I will not tell you the story behind this picture, as a matter of fact, but I just thought it was a cool picture. The Milano. Okay. So, yeah, the design of the ships have been great. I love the whole, I mean, it's not just the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It's also everything in the MCU that has to do with galactic stuff. I've always liked the design of all their ships, like from Thanos' ships to the Asgardian ships, to all that kind of stuff. Like I thought all of them have always done really, really well, and they've always had really good designs on those. All right. Next up, we've got Stefan DeLint Routers writes, how do you feel about product placement in movies? How far can they go before it starts to bother you? You know what? For the most part, product placement in movies has never really bothered me until it becomes right in your face. Like I'm looking around for something here. I'll just use this for an example because this is the only thing I have with any logos on it. So, because listen, if you were to walk into my house, you would see a Samsung television. You would see a Quick Chef food processor. You would see a can of Zevia. You would see, like, if you just walked into my house and you walk into any room, you're going to see in real life product placement, right? If you look at somebody on the corner and they're talking on their phone, you're going to see probably an Apple phone. By the way, Android is way better than Apple, but whatever. I'm using an Apple phone right now. Can I just say this too? Siri sucks. Can I just mention that? Siri absolutely sucks. The Google Assistant and even Amazon's Alexa is way better. Siri blows. Anyway, and I say that as somebody who carries around an iPhone as my daily driver. Anyway, so yeah, you will see real life, like product placement is everywhere, right? So if I'm going to watch a movie or TV show, I'm going to assume, I never feel like it's out of place to see a Samsung logo, to see a Ford logo, to see a Chevy logo, to see a Levi's logo, to see anything like that, right? It's just natural. But every once in a while, and it doesn't happen often for me, but every once in a while, a movie really makes it obvious there's a product placement. It's like, hold on a second. I'm getting a call on my phone. My app iPhone is ringing. I must answer. My iPhone with the 3 camera lenses and the new A16 core and the new iOS blah, blah, blah. Yes. You know, like there was that one Transformers movie where it was like was it the Miller Lite? Was it the Miller Lite? Was that the beer or was it a Budweiser beer? I can't, you guys know the one I'm talking about, right? In that one Transformers movie with Mark Wahlberg. And like all you're seeing are these same exact beer cans all over but was Bud Light? Jay Bling is saying it was Bud Light. Yeah. But honestly, that happens very, very rarely to me because in real life, I see product logos all over the place. And so it doesn't feel out of place to me when I see it in a movie, but it's every once in a while they really overdo it. All right. Fangblaze71 writes, what's your favorite Mario game? I can never decide between Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2. Still praying for Galaxy 3 to happen one day. Listen, it's not going to be the popular answer, but by far for me, my favorite Mario game is Mario Kart. I play more Mario Kart than anything else. Yeah, Mario Kart is it. By the way, Crunchy's saying, John, if Android is better, you'd be using it, John. Well, here's the problem. My wife for a couple of years was an exec at Apple. And so we kind of had to become an Apple family. And here's the thing. I really like my iPad. I like my iPad a lot. And I've got a Mac Studio for my desktop computer. And unfortunately, there's just a few things that the iPhone will integrate better with some of my other Mac products that just kind of make it convenient for me to keep using the iPhone for now. But Android is better. The new Google Fold phone, have you seen that? They just announced the new Google Fold. I've never looked at buying any of the foldable phones, but the new Google Fold phone looks really intriguing to me. I've had this phone now for a couple of years, and it's fine. I just use the assistants a lot. Like I used to use Google Assistant a lot, and there's so much that Google Assistant could do that this thing cannot do. I've got a couple of Alexa devices in my house, including in my bedroom, and the Alexa devices, you can say, Alexa, blah, 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 and it can do so much more than Siri can. But anyway, I don't want to get on a holy war crusade here between Apple and Android or anything like that. It's just, I'm an Apple user, but I really think Android is way better. Anyway, all right. Next up, Tacky75 writes, according to a source I trust implicitly, Adam Driver shook hands with Marvel and will be the new Reed Richards, awaiting official confirmation. Well, you read that, Taki. Come on, you read that. We talked about that on our show the other day. There have been many reports going around that Adam Driver is going to be the new Reed Richards. I said on my own show that the one thing that my source was able to tell me, and it's far from a confirmation, but the one thing my source was able to tell me was that he has met with them. That's all I know. And so I don't know that if it was about anything serious. And even if it was, I don't know if it was about Fantastic Four. And even if it was about Fantastic Four, I don't know if it was about Reed Richards. But that is the prevailing chat right now, is that Adam Driver is going to be Reed Richards. I could see it happening. I could also see it not happening. But I mean, the reason I would be totally cool with Adam Driver being Reed Richards is because I have absolutely zero doubt that he can come across as the smartest guy in the room. You know, just think about the personality that the character that Adam Driver brings to some of his on-screen personas. I have no doubt he can come across as the smartest guy in the room, which is what Reed Richards is supposed to be. So yeah, we'll see. All right. Next up, Taki also writes, times I cried in Guardians 3, 1, Sky, 2, I love you guys. The third for me, I'll just say one word, hurts. Yeah. Once the word hurts. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie, you have no idea what I'm talking about. The word hurts. Yeah, that's when the waterworks started happening in my wife's eyes. Many tears in that movie. All right. Super writes. Let's see. Super writes. After watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Rocket is the best character after Downey. Dude's a rare breed for real. I don't know that I agree, but I think Rocket is a great character. I've loved the Rocket character ever since Guardians 1. Like when he orchestrated their escape from the prison, I really started to like the character a lot. And certainly this is Rocket's best outing yet. I mean, I might have him in my top 10 favorite characters, but yeah, he comes across great in this movie. No doubt about it. He comes across great. All right. Jesse Has a Turtle writes, has there been any other PG-13 scenes like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that had you disturbed due to the violent nature of things implied that were PG-13? I don't know. Listen, it's a very, very good question. It's a very good question. But here's the thing. I'm an adult. Well, I don't always act like an adult, but I'm an adult. Which means I often don't notice what movies I'm seeing if it's PG-13 or rated R, right? So it's not a distinction I make in my head, but things that happen in a PG-13 movie that was really disturbing due to the violent nature of things implied. I'm not really sure. You know, it's funny because we watch Infinity War, and literally in Infinity War is the biggest mass murder in the history of film, right? In Infinity War, we have the biggest example of mass murder in the history of not just film, but in the history of fiction. Half of not the planet, half of the universe died, was murdered like that. But we don't really think of that as disturbing. Isn't that a little unnerving that we don't really think of that? I mean, I don't really, it was just, Thanos snapped his fingers and the biggest mass murder in the history of fiction ever happened. But we don't really think about it that way, right? So I'm not, it's a great question, Jesse. I'm not really sure what the answer to that is. Anyway, good question, man. Next up, Future Millionaire writes, hey, John, not really a hockey fan myself, but a lot of people here in Miami are enjoying seeing both the Panthers and the Heat, both in the playoffs. Yeah. And listen, right now, your Florida Panthers are putting the boots to my Toronto Maple Leafs. They're putting the boots to my Toronto Maple Leafs. Hey, I'm just happy the Toronto Maple Leafs, for the first time in almost 20 years, won a playoff series, but now in the second round, your Florida Panthers are kicking the crap. They're up 2-0, probably go up 3-0 a little bit later. But yeah, there it is. But congratulations. And by the way, I think last I checked today, the Miami was winning their game against the Knicks, so maybe they go up 2-1 now. All right, Mark Gommans writes, with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Fast X and The Little Mermaid likely to surpass Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania's box office in the weeks to come, which will be the biggest? I ultimately think Fast X is going to be the biggest of the year. I think it will pass Mario Brothers. Now, let me double check to see where Mario Brothers is at right now. Mario Bros. Box office. I mean, we know it crossed the $1 billion mark not long ago, just a few days ago. The Super Mario Brothers movie is now at $1.048 billion. So $1.04 billion. I think Fast X will pass it. I'm not sure I think Guardians has a shot to pass it. A shot, but I don't necessarily think it'll cross the $1 billion mark. I think Little Mermaid has a shot at $1 billion. I think it's going to be very big. I think Little Mermaid's going to be really big. But I don't know if it's going to hit $1 billion big. I mean, it all depends on how good or bad the movie is, right? Which I just don't know. I've only seen like 5 minutes of the movie. That's it. So I can't really say. But I think Fast 10, right now, my guess is that Fast 10 will be the one. I don't think Flash, I see a few people saying Flash. I don't think Flash has any chance in hell of making $1 billion. And I'll tell you what, I hope I'm wrong about that because Andy Muschietti deserves it. What Andy Muschietti did with the Flash, that's Andy Muschietti's movie. What he did with that movie is really fantastic. And it deserves to be $1 billion film. So I would love it if it did, but I don't think it has any chance in hell of being $1 billion film. But, well, whatever. We'll find out. All right. Let's see. Where are we at now? We are at Eldon Goblin writes, Evil Dead Rise was good, but thought it would be better. I'm kind of the same way. I thought it was good. It didn't quite live up to the hype for me, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a thumbs up movie. Thought it would be better. I can't put my finger on it, but maybe the ending felt rushed. The blob thing at the end felt like his excuse to wrap things up quickly. Blob thing? Anyway, I had the same reaction as you, Eldon. Like, I was really, first of all, I'm always excited to hear about a movie that was destined to be dumped on streaming, that a studio then goes, you know what, this is too good to dump on streaming. Let's give it a theatrical run. And they went ahead and put it in theaters. And I always love hearing that. And actually, what did Evil Dead Rise, what did it end up making at the box office? Man, this was a little low budget movie, and it's approaching $100 million worldwide. For this little low budget film that was supposed to be dumped on streaming, it's approaching $100 million. So good for them. Anyway, and yeah, I liked it. No complaints from me. I'm just feeling a lot like you did, Eldon. I didn't really kind of feel like it lived up to that whole thing. So, we'll see. All right, next up. Kendall Barker writes, Disney gambled with the wait and see approach for Jonathan Majors. Do you think they are making the same mistake as Warner Brothers did with the Ezra controversy? There is a big flashing red light difference between the Ezra Miller situation and the Jonathan Majors situation. The only thing that happened with Ezra Miller prior to them shooting The Flash was the incident outside of that, what was it, Iceland, Finland, I can't remember, nightclub, when he had the argument with that girl, grabbed her by the throat, and took her to the ground, right? That's the only thing that happened. The big difference between the Jonathan Majors situation and the Ezra Miller situation is we had the Ezra Miller situation on film that was released to the world. Everybody saw it. It was indisputable. There was no disputing what we saw. Now, granted, I have said this before. I will say it again. I heard about the Ezra Miller video before I saw it. And when I saw it, it wasn't as bad as I had pictured it in my head. It's still bad, though. I don't care. You grab a girl by the throat. Now, look, again, when I had first heard about it, people described it as if he pulled an Undertaker and gave her, the choke slam. Like people described it like Ezra grabbed her by the throat, lifted her 3 feet off the ground, and then slammed her down onto the concrete, right? If you've seen the video, that's not exactly how it plays out, but it's still bad enough for what it was. And Warner Brothers never addressed it. How you can have one of the stars of your big franchise be caught on film during a pandemic at a fucking nightclub, grabbing a girl by the throat, and granted, it wasn't Undertaker-like, and then taking her down to the ground and not even address it. Now, granted, that was a different Warner Brothers. That was AT&T. That was when AT&T owned Warner Brothers. It was a completely different management then than what it has now. But yeah, they fucking choked the chicken by not even addressing it. The difference between that and the Jonathan Majors situation is right now, facts are very ambiguous. We're hearing what's been reported. We're also hearing some counter reports. And I think right now, the difference between Warner Brothers at the time and Disney with Jonathan Majors is, I think Disney is waiting to see what does the court say, right? Because you don't want to say or do anything right now without anything definitive and then find out that, the court completely exonerated him. You don't want to put out any statements of support for Jonathan Majors and then have the DA come to you and say, hey, listen, we got 35 eyewitness accounts saying Jonathan Majors is smacking women around, right? So right now, I think Disney is taking the right approach of saying, hey, we don't have anything definitive like the Ezra Miller video that was going around. So we're going to wait a little bit and see. And the good news for them is they don't have anything. It's not like Kang Dynasty is coming out next week. It's not like Loki season 2 is coming out, in 3 weeks. They've got time. But I do expect Disney, at least I would hope, that if something definitive does reveal itself on the good side or the bad side, that if something definitive does come out, then Disney should address it and should say something. So anyway, that's kind of my thought on that, Kendall. Good question, man. All right. Let's see here. Donaldo Martinez writes, I had no idea Jackie Chan won an honorary Academy Award. Well deserved. Did he? I think you're right. I think you're right that he did, that he got the honorary one. That was recently too, wasn't it? Guys in the live chat, help me out with that. What year did Jackie Chan get his honorary one? I love the honorary Oscars. I love them because it's the Academy acknowledging that, hey, you know what you've contributed to this business, what you've contributed to our industry and movie going for fans. Michael Gonzalez is saying 2016, but the Laser and the Nelson are saying 2019. Nope. Now other people, now they're correcting themselves saying 2016. Okay. I love them. Some people say, okay, yeah, but an honorary Oscar isn't a real Oscar. And you know what? I disagree. When you consider that only one of those is given out every year, and it's recognizing a body of work, I think it's great. And yeah, Jackie Chan, he's an institution in the film industry. Whether you watch that particular type of movie or not is kind of irrelevant, but he's an institution. All right, Team Movies just sends in a super chat badge to be supported. Thank you, Team Movies. Donaldo Martinez writes, playing Ghost of Tsushima is like watching the movie Hero. Every frame is like a work of art. Dude, I started watching some of Ghost of Tsushima, and you are absolutely right. It is bloody gorgeous. Absolutely bloody gorgeous. I really got to sit down and finish watching because I only watched like a half hour of it and it was like 6.5 hours long, but I got to finish that off because it looked absolutely beautiful. All right. Next up, Marley Villesanor writes, after seeing Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I think Rocket is one of the most compelling MCU characters. Never thought I'd say that about a CGI animal voiced by Bradley Cooper. I'll tell you what, they were able to succeed in making us feel so much empathy for an animated character in a live action movie. Listen, James Gunn has become a master of infusing deep emotional realities into these fun flash comic book movies. Like, you go back and watch his Suicide Squad, which is brilliant. But in the midst of all these like outrageous things like Idris Elba and John Cena walking through a camp and trying to one-up each other about how creatively they can murder people there. And then all of a sudden you get that moment with King Shark just looking out a van window and you understand everything about that character from the way when he sees two people holding each other, right? Or when we start to get the backstory of Ratcatcher 2 and Ratcatcher. Like, in the midst of these bonkers, zany stories, James Gunn has found a way to just like suddenly hit the clutch, change gears, and all of a sudden have you weeping in your... It's incredible, and this movie is no different. All right, Eldon Goblin writes, as much as I like Carl Urban, I find the Johnny Cage casting very questionable. Almost as questionable as making up a new protagonist when you have a whole existing cast of characters to choose from. Oh, I disagree with you on that, Eldon. I completely disagree with you on that. I think look, because I'll tell you why, because I doubted Carl Urban with another casting before too. When they announced that Carl Urban was going to play Dr. Bones McCoy in Star Trek, I'm like, Carl Urban, like this gruff, rough, dude, like, that's the guy you're getting to play Bones in Star Trek? I don't know about that. Like, that was me. And he's great as Dr. McCoy in that. Carl Urban can play any kind of character. He can play any kind of character. And I guarantee you, when they clean shave him up and all that kind of stuff, you're not going to see Billy Butcher from The Boys when he does it. The number one most important thing to me always when you're casting somebody is the level of talent. Obviously, fit becomes an issue, yes, but the number one thing is talent. And yeah, he's a hell of an actor, man. He's an absolute hell of an actor. And so I think, listen, would I have guessed that they would get Carl Urban to play Johnny Cage in a Mortal Kombat movie? No, I never would have guessed that in a million years. But once they announced it, I'm like, he's a hell of an actor, man. He's got great on-screen charisma. He's got great on-screen charm. And all I can tell you is this, if they cast him for that, it's because they know the way they've written the character matches him. So I'm going to go into it with a lot of belief until I see it and it proves me otherwise. I'm going to go into it with a lot of different belief. Let's see here. Team Movies writes, hey, John, ever been to the AMC Empire 25 in New York City? I have, as a matter of fact, actually once back in the AMC days. We decided for a short period of time to get a New York correspondent because a number of press junkets were happening in New York. This is back when I still did press junkets. I don't do them anymore. And I was really getting sick and tired of having to fly out to New York. Like 90% of press junkets happen in Los Angeles, but every once in a while there'd be a movie like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo that was having its press junket in New York, and I would have to fly to New York, and I hate flying and I hate going to New York. But So we decided for a short period of time that we were going to hire a New York City correspondent to cover all the press events in New York for us. And so I had to fly out to New York to conduct these interviews. And the place we held the interviews was at the AMC Empire 25. And I sat in there for 2 full days interviewing like 40 different people for a New York correspondent job. But yes, so that was the one time. I've never seen a movie there, but that is the one time I've been there. All right. And then we've got Zoom sends in just a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you so much for that, Zoom. And okay, guys, so what we're going to do right now, we still have more questions to come. And actually, I'm going to turn off the super chats now because I think we've already taken too many. I'm turning off the super chats. There we go. But we still have a bunch more questions to get to. But before we get to them, I'm going to take a second here and thank a sponsor of our channel here today and this video, my mobile service provider, our good friends at Mint Mobile. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, your utility bills and favorite streaming services, inflation is everywhere. Seriously, make it stop. Thankfully, there's one company out there that's giving you a much needed break. It's Mint Mobile. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know that ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've been saving almost 70% a month over my old phone plan. For people looking for extra savings this year, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. By going online only and eliminating the traditional cost of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Ask Me Anything. Again, my mobile service provider. In all seriousness, guys, I'm not kidding what I said in the spot. I switched. I was on one of the major carriers, and I mean forever, just like most of you guys. I was paying more than triple with the major carriers compared to what I'm paying now on Mint Mobile. Just straight up, I'm just telling you the facts. I was paying more than triple. Fantastic service with them. I've got no complaints. It's been absolutely awesome working with them. Anyway, go down, check in the link in the description below to go to Mint Mobile and make sure you go to mintmobile.com/Campea. Okay. With that down, guys, let's keep things rolling here. We go on to our next question, which comes to us from Excalibur, who writes, I heard you talk about going to Bible college. Yeah, I went to seminary and Bible college once. Do you consider yourself a Christian, and what does that mean to you? Thanks. It's an interesting question. It's always difficult for me to know how to give a thing. I consider myself, look, and I don't mean to cause any debates. You can think about what you want about this all you want, but this is my particular story. I consider myself a theist, which is the opposite of an atheist. All great respect for my atheist friends. I'm just saying I'm different. I'm theist. That being said, I do not really identify with, and I don't want to get into a big religious thing. I'm just letting you ask the question. I'm going to let you know where I am. Okay. I no longer identify with what would be called the North American church, because to me, much of what call themselves evangelicals in North America are heretics. And basically it's this. With North American Christianity, I found that God created man in his own image, and North American evangelicals decided to return the favor. North American evangelicals, for the most part, I'm not trying to paint anything with too broad of a brush, because this is not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. But what I found is that a lot of the North American, what call themselves the North American Evangelical Church, they completely hate Jesus. They have rejected Jesus, and they've replaced Jesus and Jesus's teachings with a different small g God that they created to look like them. It's not a coincidence that a lot of North American evangelicals worship a God that seems to have their own biases. And isn't it funny that the God that they follow has their own prejudices? And they just basically seem to completely reject the real Bible. They reject the teachings of Jesus. They just reject everything. And they've made their own religion out of worshiping their own personalities. And that's just something I rejected, and something that so that's me. So, again, that's just that's my story. That's my background. That's, my thing. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, let us move on, shall we? Next up, where do we go here? That was, I heard you talk about going to Bill's HQ. John, super chatting from Disney Parks right now. Guardians was great at the Chinese. Can't wait for Sunday. That's great. Bill's HQ is one of our viewers who actually flew in from Buffalo to come to our live event tomorrow in Burbank. We're looking forward to seeing you. I'm glad you like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I'm glad you got to see it at the Chinese theater. Every film fan, if you're going to have like a Mecca, right? A Mecca pilgrimage as a film fan. A film fan's Mecca pilgrimage should be like once in their lifetime to go and see a movie at the Chinese theater in Hollywood. I think that's just kind of like one little expedition we should all aspire to do at some point in our lives as film fans. All right, next up. Payo Time, Canadian Rams writes, I have never heard you talk about Survivor. Well, there's a reason for that. What are your thoughts on it being renewed for a 45th season? Go Leafs from the Hammer. For those of you who do not know, the Hammer is Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. That is my hometown. That is the greatest city in the world. Hamilton. So all the significant events in my life have taken place, and where my family still is. So that aside, I'm not a fan of Survivor. When I was much, much younger, I watched the first season of Survivor like everybody did. Loved the first season of Survivor like most people did. And then I never watched it again. I mean, I tried watching a little bit here and there, but I remember thinking, as a Canadian, if you really want to do a show called Survivor, drop them in the middle of Saskatoon in the middle of the winter. Take them up to the North Pole. And like the show really has nothing to do with surviving. Like if you did a Bear Grylls kind of show called Survivor and you made a game out of that would be more interesting to me. But hey, listen, and I'm not making fun of anybody who watches that show and enjoys it. If you like that stuff, that is awesome. I'm just saying it's not really for me. That's all. So yeah, don't really care much about Survivor myself. All right. Let's see. Next up here. Zachary Zavros writes, have you seen Guy Ritchie's The Covenant with Jake Gyllenhaal? It was very well done and has a hilarious phone montage scene. I have still not seen it. Guy Ritchie is one of my favorite directors in the world. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. Guy Ritchie, of course, done Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, Aladdin, the Robert Downey Jr., Sherlock Holmes movies. He's a very diverse, incredible director. But it's just one of those things, like for me, when there's a mid-size or smaller movie coming out, and if I can't see it in its first weekend, it generally ends up waiting for me for a while to see it. And like with everything that's been going on with me the last couple of weeks, including like we had an entire 10 days with everything with the CinemaCon and all that kind of stuff, it just slipped under my radar. And I still have not seen it. And I want to see it really bad because I love Guy Ritchie. I really, really love Guy Ritchie. I've heard nothing but good things about it. So that's good as well. All right. Next up, we've got Jaden Voss, who writes, we've been seeing rumors that Mika Kunis, I think you probably meant Mila Kunis, was going to play the Thing, but she immediately turned that down. Now I'm seeing rumors that Michelle Yeoh could play a female version of Doctor Doom. Thoughts? Don't care. Don't care. I mean, listen, it's funny to me, the things that people choose to get their little panties bunched up in their butt cheeks about. I just find it funny. But I have never cared. You can go back to my days in the movie blog. I don't care. I just don't care. When a character and when a fictitious character is either gender or race swapped, I don't care. Actors are cast to play characters that they are not in real life. That's all. I remember when people got all upset when Scarlett Johansson got cast to play, I can't remember the exact movie it was. Like she was cast to play like a trans character. And like all of a sudden everybody got upset. That should be played by a trans actor. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, if you're getting somebody to play Hitler in a movie, you don't go out and find a real life Nazi. You get somebody who's not a Nazi to pretend to be a Nazi, because that's what acting is. That's what acting is. And when it comes to characters being gender or race swapped, I remember the one time in my life I got kind of upset about that was because as a child growing up, I watched the reruns of the original Lorne Greene Battlestar Galactica, and Starbuck was obviously one of my favorite characters, right? And then when I heard this new Battlestar Galactica was coming out, and it was going to be a girl Starbuck, what? Like I was like, well, how can they do that? Campea tears all over the place. How could they do that? Oh, I was so mad about it. But guess what? That show, Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica, I believe is the greatest television show ever made. It's absolutely phenomenal. And one of the big reasons it was so good was because of Katie Sackhoff's Starbuck. And it was magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. Actually, a lot of people today, if you ask, is Starbuck a guy or a girl? People say, well, Starbuck's a girl, right? They don't even remember Dirk Benedict's Starbuck. And you should, because Dirk Benedict was great as Starbuck. But it was one of those things. Look, here's the bottom line for me. Why I don't care. I just don't care. Unless like a James Bond. Like for me, a James Bond always needs to be a guy. And it's very, very rare that I feel that a certain fictitious character needs to stay a certain gender or needs to stay a certain race. It's when the absolute DNA of that character has something to do with either their race or their gender. And the whole DNA of who and what James Bond is very, very much male. And that's why I think Barbara Broccoli, who owns and runs the James Bond franchise, has said that they were never going to do a female Bond. But I think 95% of male characters in fiction can be done as female characters because it doesn't really matter. I've had this argument with people over Superman a lot too, when they were talking about doing a black Superman. I'm like, who cares? But Superman is white. Actually, Superman is not white. Superman is an alien organism who's just so happens that his appearance more resembles somebody who's a Caucasian human being than an African-American human being. But Superman is not white. Superman is an alien organism that just so happens to kind of look this way. The pigmentation of Superman's skin has nothing to do with Superman's character. Unlike James Bond, where a lot about the character of James Bond has to do with him being male, the tone of the color of Superman's skin has absolutely nothing to do with the character of Superman. Zero, zilch, nothing. As certainly not anything important or core to the DNA of the characteristics of what makes up the character of Superman. So I don't care. I don't care if you make Superman white or black or Indian or Pakistani or Asian or black. I don't care. Because it makes no difference to the character of Superman. And that's why I feel that way about 95% of the fictitious characters out there. I don't care. As long as you nail those core essential elements of what makes that character, whether they've got a fucking dick or a vagina makes absolutely zero difference to me. I really don't care. Now, I'm not telling you need to feel the same way I do. You can have a different feeling on that. I'm totally cool with that. But if you're going to ask me, how do I feel if they do a female Doctor Doom? I don't care. If I was making the movie, I'd probably make it a male Doctor Doom, but I have no problem if somebody else makes them female. Because Katie Sackhoff made Starbuck one of my favorite television characters of all time. Anyway, again, you don't have to feel the same way that I do about it, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. All right. Next up, Zachary Zavros writes, what voiceover microphone do you recommend? Well, I mean, that really all depends on your budget. I mean, listen, I use things like there's the big expensive Shure microphone. There's like, you can get up to $1,000 microphones, all that kind of stuff. Like right now I'm using a Shure, M7V. I think that's what this is called. It works great. I love my Rode, Procasters. On the main set of the John Campea Show, we use Rode Procasters. Those are great. If you're on more of a, those are about $300. If you're on a more of a budget, Rode, RODE also makes another mic that we use called the Rode Pod Mic. It's a shorter mic, but it sounds great. Chris Carr uses a Rode Pod Mic at her desk in the studio. And that's around $100. That's about $99. You can get that for. And then you can get some even cheaper ones, like some of the Blue Yeti stuff, or even there's a version of the Blue Snowball, or go get a used Blue Snowball microphone. You can get some really good results. If you're making if you're doing a voice character for Pixar, you might want to get one of the more expensive ones, but honestly, 99% of the people won't be able to tell the difference between what kind of mic you're using if you get at least the Rode Pod Mic or better. I think you'll be good there. I think you got a lot of leeway there. All right. Let's see here. Next up, Dallas Designer writes, I read Bob Iger's book. It's great. Fantastic read. Would you read David Zaslav's book if he put one out? Let's call it The Axe, the Sax, and the Max. Yes, I would. Yes, I would. I'm a pretty big David Zaslav fan. It's hard not to be a fan of an executive when that executive is doing all the things that you think they should do. Like all the stuff David Zaslav has been doing, other than the stupid name change of HBO Max. Anyway, just call it HBO. Anyway, other than that one decision, almost everything that David Zaslav has done has been stuff that I would have done if I were him. And so if you have an executive that is doing all the things that you would do, you would probably be a fan of them, right? So I'm a pretty big fan of David Zaslav. So yes, I would probably, yes, definitely read that book. All right, next up. Anthony C. writes, to me, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 didn't feel like a goodbye, more like an I'll see you later. Nebula's become one of my favorite characters, 8.5 out of 10, can't advise for kids to see. You know, that is the big question, Anthony, I've had a bunch of people asking me about, John, do you think I can take my kids? I'm like, I don't know. It all depends on the type of stuff you do or don't show your kids already. I mean, if I had kids right now, I don't know, and they were like, say, under 10, I don't know if I would show them Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or not. I don't know. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying me and Ann would have to have a lot of conversations about that. So yeah, because it's disturbing and it's very emotional in many places. And it all depends on the kid. It all depends on the kid. All right. Let's see. Next up, young Midoriya writes, there's a little My Hero Academia reference there. Sends in like a $20 super chat badge. Thank you, young Midoriya, who writes, just got back from my second screening of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and wow. Love it even more. Really love how this sect of Ravagers led by Sylvester Stallone was in the film. They were intimidating and militaristic. Yeah, I mean, that's no spoiler for anybody. I mean, we saw early in Empire Magazine, we knew Sylvester Stallone was listed on IMDb. We knew he was going to be back. Doesn't play a big role in the film. But yeah, the Ravagers are still very much a very big part of this universe and world, and they play a part. I won't say what part they play in the movie, but yeah, they definitely they play a certain role in the galaxy that's still out there. And of course, that's a very important part of Peter's life and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I liked it very much too. But again, there wasn't a lot there, not a whole lot there. And that's okay. All right. Let's see. Next up, we've got Cody Leach, who writes, you were a huge inspiration for me starting on YouTube. Oh, thank you so much, man. That's really good to hear. Actually, let me just see if I can fix this a little bit. Okay, there we go. You were a huge inspiration for me starting on YouTube. I appreciate that, man. And I was able to go full-time and cross 100,000 within the past year. What career milestone do you look back on and are most proud of? You know, I think for me, you got to understand, first of all, Cody, I don't know if you crossed 100,000 views or you crossed 100,000 subscribers, but whatever. Those are both huge milestones. Congratulations on both of those. That's fantastic. I think for me, yeah, you got to understand that when I left Collider and everybody told me that Collider was going to do just fine without me, and that when I was just going to go off and do my own thing, and everybody told me I was going to fail. Everybody told me I was going to fail. Only a handful of people believed I could make it work. Anne she was kicking my ass to do it. She was like, no, you got to leave. You got to do your own thing. Do your own thing. So she was the one pushing me to do it, which is awesome. That's why she's the best partner in the world. Anne, my family, Dennis Zen, Christian was one of the guys who told me I would be just fine, but, and a couple of others, Schnepp, a couple of others, but not many. And so when I started off on my own, and my big goal was hopefully I can make $200 a month, right? I went from making a 6-figure paycheck to hoping I could make $200 a month. That was my goal getting going, right? When the channel hit 100 million views, that was a very emotional. I didn't get all that emotional when we hit the 100,000 subscriber mark and a number of other things. But I think for me, it's when we hit 100 million views. That was an emotional one for me. That was the one for me that was, we did it. We made it work. We made it work. And, yeah, I think for me it was the 100 million view thing. And, you know, here's a kick. I just opened up my stats. We are now at 294.8 million views, which means we are 5.2 million views away from 300 million views. Now granted, 300 million views compared to some YouTube channels is tiny, right? I am still a very, 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 very tiny fish in a very big ocean. I'm an irrelevant nobody, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm perfectly happy being an irrelevant nobody. But I never would have dreamed that we would hit 300 million views. Never would have dreamed it. And we're probably going to hit 300 million views probably by the end of June. We'll hit 300 million views, maybe by mid-June. But sometime in June, we're going to hit 300 million views. And that's never thought. But yeah, for me personally, the big one was hitting 100 million views. That was crazy. I remember when we did it at AMC, but at AMC, we had the big corporation, we had the big brand and all that kind of stuff. Still never thought we would have hit 100 million views at AMC, but we did. But hitting 100 million views on my own channel when absolutely nobody thought we could do it, and I had my doubts, that was the biggest thing to me. I'm actually getting a little bit emotional thinking about it. Now that I'm kind of getting to the end of the road, you know, I've let everybody know that I'm probably going to retire in the next couple of years. And because I got a lot of things I want to do as a younger dude, I want to be able to retire when I'm younger because I got a lot of things I want to do in my retirement. So it's actually getting more, looking at some of these milestones we've been able to hit, it becomes a little bit even more emotional now that I kind of see the end of my career journey. Again, it's not happening anytime immediately, probably sometime a little bit after Superman Legacy comes out or something like that. So it's still a couple of years away. But yeah, that's just me. So yeah, but again, man, the whole idea of you being able to get to 100,000, whether it's subscribers or viewers, that is massive. Like 2% of YouTube channels can get to those types of numbers. So the fact that you're able to do it is amazing. So well done. All right. Let's see here. Going next, we got Johnny Got Lost writes, I'm excited what James Gunn will do with Superman after seeing this beautiful movie with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Yeah, listen, I completely believe, I said it from the day it happened. Warner Brothers hiring James Gunn and Peter Safran to run DC is the absolute best thing they could have possibly done. It's the absolute best move they could have done. I think DC is in very, very good hands right now. The best hands they've ever been in. And I think, listen, Superman Legacy may come out and may be total crap and total garbage. What are you going to do? But for now, I think they could not have done better than gone out and got a guy who's been a massive comic book fanatic his entire life, a guy who has made a long and growing list of great comic book movies, now the latest with Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I think it's going to be really good. All right, next up. We've got Andrew Rice who writes, started watching Ted Lasso on your recommendation, and wow, I've never felt better watching a show, and death to Nate. Yes, death to Nate. But I still remember when Ann and I started watching Ted Lasso, I couldn't, it's just, I really love it. It's very, very rare when you just get a movie or a show that's just about good people doing good things, right? You always got to have a big villain and you got to have all this kind of stuff, right? I remember Lupita Nyong'o's movie, The Queen of Katwe. If you haven't seen it, it's wonderful. It's based on a true story. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's uplifting, and it makes your soul smile. And I remember there was no bad guy in the movie, nothing like that. It was just about good people doing good things. And I think in a world where we have great, amazing shows like Succession and Last of Us and Yellowstone and, Andor, where there's a lot of grit and violence and stuff like that. And I love those shows. But in the midst of that, to have a show like a Ted Lasso that, again, is just about good people doing good things. And what the power of kindness is just really remarkable. And I love the show. I absolutely love Ted Lasso. I really, really do. Okay, next up. We got Shay who writes, do you think the real introduction to mutants in the MCU can revive people's interests at a higher level in future projects? I think the vast majority of moviegoers don't care. The vast majority of moviegoers don't care. It's only us inside baseball nerds that really care about that. Quality movies is what will get people back into, re-spark their interest. Bad movies is what's made people start to lose interest. But I will tell you what, Guardians, 95% audience rating. Flash is awesome. I really, really love Flash. It's not the greatest comic book film of all time. I don't care what James Gunn says, but it's really good. It's really, really, really good. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is going to be awesome. We're going to get 3 comic book movies in a row that are really high quality. Now, I haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse yet. I've seen about 15, 20 minutes of it, and I loved what I've seen. But I have seen Guardians 3, and I have seen Flash, and I believe Across the Spider-Verse is going to be just as good as Into the Spider-Verse. We're going to get 3 great movies in a row. The thing, it is never gimmick that gets people's interest back. Well, if they come up with a creative way to bring in mutants, will that get people? No, it doesn't matter, because none of that will matter if the movies aren't good. Winning cures everything. Right? Oh, we hate Chris Pratt's voice as Mario. Oh, we hate blah, blah, blah. Then the movie comes out and it's great. Nobody talks about Chris Pratt's voice of Mario anymore. Have you noticed that? Nobody talks about it. Why? Because winning cures everything. What the genre needs is a string of high quality movies. Because we haven't had that. We've had a string of mediocre movies with a couple of good ones peppered in here and there. But that's what we've had. And you put out a string as a genre. I don't care what studio you're from. You got a genre where you're putting out a string of mediocre movies. People are going to start to lose interest. It's not comic book fatigue. It's mediocre movie fatigue. Because if comic book fatigue was a real thing, it would have set in 7 years ago when we were getting inundated with comic book content. But it never did. It's not a coincidence that interest has started to fall off the comic book genre at the exact same time that it's seemingly the quality of the comic book genre has been taking a dip. It's not a coincidence. So what they need to get people's interest back is not the gimmick. Mutants are here now. Won't make a lick of difference if the movies aren't good. Kang is here. Won't make a difference unless the movies are really good. Tony Stark is coming back. Won't make a difference unless you make the movies really good. So here's hoping, fingers crossed, that we're about to have a string of 3 really good comic book movies in a row. Guardians 3, Flash, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse from 3 different studios. And I think that is what will reinvigorate everybody's passion and excitement about the genre again. Because right now, when we think about going to a comic book movie, we're like, I don't know if it's going to be any good or not. Because it's been really mediocre lately. All right. That's just my take on it. All right. Thanks for that, Shay. Let's see. Mr. Dover writes, "Hey, John, I'm torn with Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I like it, but I'm worried how silly the MCU is getting. Like the set design of the biological base, the outfits of the Guardians looks really cosplayish. Just me. I personally, the aesthetics mean nothing to me, right? The aesthetics mean nothing to me. Like something feeling silly has nothing to do with the design. It has to do with the tone. Rob often says that you have to make sure if you're watching a comic book movie, there has to be a sense of joy to it, right? Because it's there in when you're reading the comic book pages, there's always a sense of joy to it. Now, there have been exceptions, The Dark Knight and stuff like that. Absolutely, 100%. There are exceptions for sure. And I think for the most part, up until like phase 4, Marvel has done a brilliant job of balancing great action, dramatic thrills with lightheartedness, levity, and humor. It's always been a great balancing act they've done between the two. For me, it wasn't really until Thor: Love and Thunder that, even though I kind of like the movie, when I came out of that movie, I think it was in my first out of theater reaction, I said, this one leans a little too far into the silly. Like Ragnarok had some silly in it, right? But it was well balanced silly, right? And it's like Ragnarok struck like almost the perfect balance. And Love and Thunder just went way too far the other way. Way too far the other way. I think Shang-Chi is another good example of when it was really, really balanced, like well balanced. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was not as out of balance as Thor: Love and Thunder was, but it was still a little bit out of balance. But none of that had to do with the color of the costumes or anything like that. Personally, I think there's a scene which is in one of the trailers where you see the Guardians and they're each in a different color space suit, right? Well, in the movie, there's actually a narrative reason why each of the suits are a different color. There's actually a story reason for it. So that's fine. A biological living like a biological base. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was a real good sci-fi element. That's not the stuff to me that's silly. It gets more into dialogue where it becomes a little bit too silly. And I thought Guardians of the Galaxy 3 got back to that Ragnarok kind of balance. Like there's a lighthearted silliness in places, but then it's offset with heavier stuff. And so it constantly changes gears and keeps us off balance by presenting it in balance, if that makes any sense. Anyway, that's just my take on it. Thanks for writing that in, Mr. Dover. I appreciate that, man, very much. All right. Let's see. Why can't I get this to turn on? Hold on a second. There we go. Sin Vendetta sends in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Sin Vendetta. And Sin Vendetta writes, "Hey, John, no question. Just wanted to say thank you for throwing a second movie talk tomorrow." That's a movie club, actually. I'll be there in person. Awesome. It'll be good to have you there. Saw Guardians 3 on Thursday, and I loved it. So looking forward to the discussion tomorrow. Yeah, me too, man. And you know what's really great? Ann and I were talking about the event tomorrow. Because on the first movie club event that we did, where me, Christian, and Greg talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it was basically, here's why we didn't like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And for me, it is always way more fun to talk about movies you do like. You know, last time we had to stand up on that stage, and we had a great time. Don't get me wrong, we had a great time. But we had to stand on that stage and talk about a movie we didn't like. In Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I mean, if it at least could have been like the worst movie we've ever seen, we might have had even more fun talking about it, but it was just not good. And we didn't like it. And so we still had a good time talking about it, but it's always more fun to talk about what you love. You know, that's the thing. I always tell, when people ask me about, for advice on how to YouTube and whatever, the big piece, you guys know what I'm going to say. The big piece of advice I always give is this: talk about the things you love. There are too many YouTube channels out there, and I'm talking about all genres, whether you're talking about music, whether you're talking about shoes, whether you're talking about fashion, whether you're talking about movies, whether you're talking about sports. There are way too many YouTube channels out there that are just we bitch and complain and cry channels. Like every single video, you go to these channels, it doesn't matter what genre you're talking about, with shoes, bikes, whatever. And it's just like, why this sucks, and why that sucks, and why we should be angry about this, and why we should be afraid of this, and blah, 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 and cry, right? It's like Master Yoda said, it's the easy thing to do because everybody likes getting mad. But I always tell people, if you're going to develop a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel, make your identifying factor what it is you love. Because I guarantee you at the end of the day, you're going to have more longevity. The reason I've been able to do this for 20 years, because I think July 3rd will be the 20th anniversary of when I put up my first movie blog post, the day I launched the movie blog. So July 3rd is when it's going to be my 20-year anniversary of doing this. And the reason I've been able to last 20 years and other people come and go is because I like focusing on the things I love. Obviously there are things I don't like. I don't like that HBO is changing its name to Max. I didn't like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. There are obviously things that I don't like, and I mention that I don't like it, and then I move on. And I go back to talking about the things I do like. Because if I haven't done that, if I hadn't managed myself that way, I don't think I would have lasted. I think I would have gotten real tired and burned out many years ago. And I think I totally would have lost my audience many years ago. Because eventually, if all you are is a crying channel, where you're just crying all the time, bah, 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 bitch, 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 cry, cry, cry. I hate this. I'm afraid of this. We should all be outraged by this. Like, if that's like you're running some kind of like fashion channel, that's all you're doing. This brand sucks, and that brand sucks, and that brand sucks. Guess what? It gets some quick, easy clicks, but in the long run, somebody else is going to come along that cries louder than you. And that audience that you build out of crying, you're going to stop being the flavor of the week because another channel is going to come around that cries louder. And then eventually what you start getting is this competition between hate channels that who can cry the loudest, who can be the most outraged, who can make the most stupid thumbnails, right? It's like, So yeah, again, all that is to say that I am actually very, very happy and excited and all that kind of stuff that our new edition of Movie Club is about a movie that I like. And we get, because it's always more fun. It is always more fun to talk about the things you like than to talk about the things you don't like. All right. Anyway, thanks for that question, Sin Vendetta. And we look forward to seeing you there, man. All right. A. Marcellus writes, my favorite TV shows of all time are animated. Number 1, The Venture Brothers, which, by the way, John Schnepp worked on The Venture Brothers. Number 2, Batman the Animated Series. I'm so glad that The Venture Brothers is getting a movie to officially end the series. Yeah, not only that, so John Schnepp worked on Venture Brothers, but of course his other show that he actually directed, Metalocalypse, I think they just announced that Metalocalypse was returning. I think, and I certainly hope that when they do, when Metalocalypse returns, that John Schnepp gets some kind of a shout out, because he worked on that show for years. And I really do hope he gets, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to do some kind of protest or boycott if they don't. I'm just saying I really hope they do. I hope they do. So yeah, we'll see. All right, next up. Jay Bling writes, someone posted a video of a theater playing the trailers for The Little Mermaid and the Transformers Rise of the Beast on top of each other. So there were Transformers fighting to part of your world. You've never faced anything like this, Prime. Part of your world. And the Unicron comes down. Okay, I would like to see that. Jay Bling, if you can please email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com, and I would be very, very grateful if you could please send me a link to that, because I would very, very much like to see that. That would be great. All right. Let's see. Michael Kurtz writes, hey, John, how are writers paid during the writer's strike? I am not a part of the writers union. I believe one of the responsibilities of the union is to put together a strike fund that will then pay out to its members if a strike happens. But make no mistake, that money will run out fast, and it's going to financially hurt the writers. So a lot of them are going to go without being paid. So hopefully the union managed itself well and has a good strike fund. But even that will run out quickly. So yeah, here's hoping for them. All right. Next up, Chow Down Detroit writes, hey, John, my cousin is married to a former Maple Leaf, Al Iafrate. I used to love Al Iafrate. Do you remember him during the 90s? He had a monster slap shot. Oh, I do. He played in the same, Al Iafrate played in the same era as like the Wendell Clarks and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember Al Iafrate very, very much. And yes, he did have a really, really wicked slap shot. That is so cool that your cousin is married to him. Nobody else knows what we're talking about. But yes, I remember Al Iafrate very, very fondly. That's pretty cool. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? We are at Sus Animations writes, would you rather see Bucky's elbow grow back or his knee grow back? I'm not exactly sure. His elbow? I'm not quite sure what it is we're talking about, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, I'm probably missing something. Anyway, Michael Kurtz writes, Michael Kurtz writes, hey, John, you said that you do the John Campea Show until at least Superman Legacy. No, I didn't say I would do it at least until Superman Legacy. I said I would probably do it. Anyway, said you'll do the John Campea Show at least until Superman Legacy. What if that gets pushed back and the WGA strike? Will this affect your retirement? Well, see, here's the thing. I don't think I have any kind of a, I don't have a specific timeline. Like, it's not like I have a date on the calendar where I was like, I'm going to retire by this date. And it's if this gets pushed back. No, listen, I'll be honest with you. I could retire next month. I'm not planning on it. Right now, I'm just kind of playing it by feel. And I think right now my retirement will probably be sometime in 2025, maybe 2026. I don't know, but honestly, like, I may wake up tomorrow and just go, you know what? I'm done. I've done. See, because here's the real fortuitous thing about the position I'm in right now is that I've already done everything that I've wanted to do, right? I've done everything that I've wanted to do. At this point now, I'm just still doing it because I find it fun. And the moment I don't find it fun, I'm going to retire because I've done everything I need to do. I've got everything I need to retire, all that kind of stuff. At this point, I'm just doing it because it's fun. And I'm thinking, okay, I can still do this for a couple more years. And that's what my plan is right now. My plan is still to do that. But the reality is, a writer's strike isn't going to change my release date because I'm not planning my retirement around Superman Legacy. I'm just saying, oh yeah, over there when Superman Legacy is coming out, that's probably where that's probably where I'll probably retire. It's probably right around that time, but it's not because that's where Superman Legacy is, right? Like I said, I may very well wake up tomorrow and decide, you know what? This isn't fun anymore. And which I'm not. I mean, I'm still having a lot of fun doing this, but I mean, I could wake up tomorrow and go, you know what? I'm not having fun anymore. And I'm very, very lucky. The way I've managed my career for the last 20 years is that I am very much in the very fortuitous position that I now get to just keep doing it because I enjoy doing it. I don't need to do this anymore, but I like doing it. And that's why I'm doing it. And so once it happens, I don't. So it could be a little bit later than Superman Legacy. It could be before Superman Legacy. I don't know. I'm just saying it's probably roughly ballpark going to be like another 2 years. That's my guess right now, at any rate, roughly about another 2 years. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right. Let's see here. Where are we at? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting my screen to change. There we go. Brian Misford writes, with AI now writing books and scripts and AI able to create videos based on text, how will the industry react to AI generated scripts and movies? It ain't there yet. It just ain't there yet. I have read some things that AI generated and it ain't there yet. It's not there yet. Plus, like one of the big things that the producers and the Writers Guild are hammering out is that you're not going to be able to use AI to write scripts. I mean, you can use it as a tool, just like you use Google search as a tool. People are going to be able to use it as a tool, but I don't think you're going to be able to, they're going to write it in their agreements that they're not able to do that. And again, it just simply ain't there. I'm not saying it won't get there, but it's just really not there yet. Let's see here. Next up, we've got Hayden Burker writes, Bradley Cooper or Chris Pratt as Jonathan Kent. As Jonathan Kent? Honestly, I don't really see either of them, but I think I could see Bradley Cooper more as a fatherly figure more than Chris Pratt. I mean, I like them both very much as actors, so I'd be fine with either of them, but I would lean towards, for a Jonathan Kent character, I'd lean more towards Bradley Cooper. Let's see. Next up, we got The House That Hulk Built writes, John, what are your thoughts on the ending to The Sopranos? Do you think Tony lives or dies at the ending? And do you think they will make a spinoff? Well, they already did do a spinoff. Well, they did a prequel, right? With The Many Saints of Newark. So they already did that. Yeah, the ending of The Sopranos, which some people consider to be the greatest television show of all time, and for good reason. It's not my number one show of all time, but a lot of people consider it to be the best. The ending was one of the most controversial things, right? Because it just ends with the screen going black. I always interpreted it as that because they talked about just everything going black before. I initially interpreted it as that he's dead, right? And I believe since the show ended, I believe the showrunners have confirmed that, yeah, he dies at the end there. So yeah, there's that. Okay. Next up, let's see. Media Fanatic writes, between No Way Home, Wakanda Forever, and Volume 3, Marvel's made some of their best projects ever recently to me. All three also got audience acclaim. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought No Way Home was really, really good. I did not think it was the best Spider-Man movie they made. I also don't think it's in the top 3 best Spider-Man movies ever made. The 2 best Spider-Man movies ever made to me, none of them are Marvel ones. They're all Sony. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2. To me, those are the 2 best Spider-Man movies. And then I kind of think Spider-Man Homecoming is still the best Marvel one. Although, again, I really liked Far From Home and I really liked No Way Home. Like, I like all 3 of the John, why am I freezing on the name of the, what's the name of the director of the Spider-Man movies? Is John, it's a short last name. I'm freezing on it now. I can't remember. Anyway, John Watts. Thank you. Michael Gonzalez was the first one to throw that in there. I think John Watts did an incredible job with all three. I think No Way Home was really, really good. I have some issues with it, but overall, really, really good. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, also a very good movie. But I also had a number of large issues with it that while I liked it, and it's a thumbs up movie for me, I enjoyed it very much. It was so nowhere near as good as the first one to me. But now you got Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I think is better than No Way Home and better than Black Panther Wakanda Forever. It's fantastic. So yeah, again, here's hoping that these next three comic book movies, starting with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, then, Flash and Across the Spider-Verse, here's hoping that these three movies in a row are received as well as I think they're going to be received, and really get everybody back on board. And like very much. All right. Next up, Eric D just sends in a super chat badge. Thank you, Eric D. Appreciate that, man. Jaden Voss writes, hey, John, I have a movie recommendation for you. Still Time. It's basically the Italian version of Adam Sandler's Click, but without the overuse of jokes and universal remote. Very emotional movie. I have not heard of it, but I will have to check that out. Click. It's interesting they bring up Click, Jaden, because Click was one of those movies to me. Ultimately, that movie didn't work for me. But if you guys have seen Click, it's a movie that has multiple personality disorder. That's not what the movie's about. I'm saying the movie itself has multiple personality disorder. It's like it never really kind of understood. Like, it's really two different movies. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Didn't love it. But the premise was really interesting. I thought the premise was really there. So Jaden, if you're saying that this is a Italian movie that can kind of take a premise like that, then yeah, it could be really good. All right. Fangblaze71 writes, did you see what James Gunn said about that Groot scene in Guardians 3? Hard to say what it is without spoiling, but he explains why it happened. Unfortunately, Fangblaze, I have no idea what we're talking about. I did not see any comment from James Gunn about it. And obviously we can't go into it in detail here because there's still people here who haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3 yet. But unfortunately, I can't even pretend to know what we're talking about because I did not see the comment that he made, unfortunately. So I can't give any opinion on it. All right. Let's see here. Bright writes, if I'm Kevin Feige, my number one priority is finding a new James Gunn, and I'm giving Denis Villeneuve a blank check. No better world builder in Hollywood. There's an argument to be made that Denis Villeneuve is the best director in Hollywood right now. Don't get me wrong, he's not Steven Spielberg, but Spielberg, who I believe is the greatest filmmaker of all time, Spielberg right now isn't at the height of his powers, even though all of his movies are still getting Best Picture nominations. That's how good Steven Spielberg is. He's not at the height of his powers anymore, but every movie he makes still gets nominated for Best Picture of the Academy Awards practically. But I think there is a solid argument to be made that Denis Villeneuve may be the best director in Hollywood right now. Right now. I'm seeing John D. Alves saying, sorry, but Nolan is the GOAT. I'm sorry, Nolan's resume doesn't come anywhere close to being in the conversation for GOAT. His resume still... Now, let's talk about Christopher Nolan again in 15 years. Christopher Nolan's still a very young guy. He's got a lot of films to make, but right now, Christopher Nolan's resume is not in the GOAT, not even in the conversation. It's not even in the conversation yet. He's awesome. He's phenomenal. I love Chris Nolan, but let's talk again in 15 years. Anyway, yeah, Spielberg by far is the GOAT. I mean, because not only has he made way more all-time iconic movies, but he's like the best director ever of having diverse movies. You want period piece? I'll give you a Best Picture winner. You want sci-fi? I'll give you a Best Picture winner. You want a comedy? I'll give you a Best Picture nominee. You want deep drama? I'll give you a Best Picture nominee. You want a musical? I'll give you a Best Picture nominee. You want, it doesn't matter. Steven Spielberg can do it all. That's where he has a leg up on other great directors like Quentin Tarantino, even Christopher Nolan. Like Quentin Tarantino and Christopher Nolan are brilliant. And if you watch my show, you know I love them. but they both play in a very specific sandbox, right? Like when you're watching like a Quentin Tarantino movie, you instantly know it's a Quentin Tarantino movie, right? Because he has one style. Whereas somebody like a Christopher or somebody like a Steven Spielberg, he can do anything. Anything. The same guy who made Amistad made Ready Player One. The same guy who made Jaws made West Side Story. The same guy who did E.T. did Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, it's insane. Anyway. Denis Villeneuve, there's an argument to be made he might be the best right now. I think it's up between him and Christopher Nolan. I think as far as who is the best director working right now, I think it's between Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. But is Denis Villeneuve a comic book movie maker? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, if Christopher Nolan, it would be very, very different. But Kevin Feige would never be able to get Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve wants to make Oscar kind of movies. He wants to do that sort of thing. There is no check that Kevin Feige could write Denis Villeneuve that would be reasonable, that I think would convince him to go and do that. And besides, it doesn't have to be Denis Villeneuve. There's a lot of other great directors that he can go and discover and make household names, like he did with Peyton Reed, like he did with the Russo brothers, that he did with James Gunn. I mean, James Gunn didn't become a household name before Kevin Feige. And so there's other things he can do there. I don't think it has to be maybe the best director right now with Denis Villeneuve, although I would love to see it. I would love to see it. All right. Let's see here. Next up, we got Eldon Goblin, who writes, speaking of product placement in movies, I liked Wayne's World and Return of the Killer Tomatoes in your face product placement. Oh, their versions of in your face product placement. Yes, because Wayne's World, they have that iconic scene where they did that. I don't remember it from Return of the Killer Tomatoes. I don't remember that. So, yeah. Anyway, there's that. All right. Next up, Brendan Bellman writes, what do you think of Geeks and Gamers? You're at the wrong YouTube channel. I appreciate you asking. I do not talk about other YouTube channels. So I'm going to, with respect, I'm going to take a pass on the question. I don't talk about other YouTube channels. Unless I'm talking about some great achievement somebody did and I'll want to do whatever, but my YouTube channel is not used to talk about other YouTube channels. So I appreciate you asking, but I don't do that. All right. Fangblaze71 writes, the funniest part about Guardians 3 was when some guy at my theater said she didn't even wipe loudly when Gamora got up from the toilet. Again, I'm not going to go into it. Please be careful about the questions you're asking. But yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but that would be funny. Now, normally I don't like it when people in movie theaters yell things out because, hey, dude, I know you think you're funny, but we didn't come here to listen to you yell out things during the movie. We came here to watch the movie. But every once in a while, like somebody will yell something out that will be actually pretty funny. All right. Next up, Christopher Seaberg writes, Yellowstone, my show. You think they can make a good end with all the drama? Hey, listen, if anybody can do it, Taylor Sheridan can. If anybody can. I think they've got things set up that they could have a really, really good ending. And if anybody's going to be able to make it end really well, even with all the behind the scenes drama going on with that show, obviously Kevin Costner's leaving the show. It's going to end after this season, all that kind of stuff. If anybody's going to be able to do it, it's Taylor Sheridan. So I believe, Christopher, I really do. All right. Next up, Fangblaze71 writes, if Doctor Strange 3 and Black Panther 3 get announced tomorrow, which would you be more excited for? Doctor Strange 3. Now, don't get me wrong. I would definitely have interest in Black Panther 3, but unless you tell me you're bringing back T'Challa and recasting the role, which I don't think they're going to do, then I'm not going to get terribly excited. Shuri is not a good Black Panther. Okoye would have been a much better Black Panther. Nakia was the logical choice to make the new Black Panther, but they went with Shuri. And that didn't work. And if you think it did, great. I'm not trashing on how you felt about it. I'm just speaking for myself. That didn't work. So unless they were to say they have recast T'Challa and T'Challa is returning, because T'Challa is the character that should be Black Panther. I mean, I think that's how you honor Chadwick Boseman, is by carrying on this character. But I would say Doctor Strange 3 would be the one I'd be more excited about. All right. Oops, sorry. I lost my spot here. Hold on a second. Okay. Next up, we got Generic White Male writes, how good was HBO's The Last of Us? So good. It was so good. So good. I got to tell you this story. Ann and I went to go see Nick Offerman, who's, of course, Ron Swanson in Parks and Rec, and he was in that iconic episode 3 of Last of Us. So sometime a few weeks after episode 3 aired, Nick Offerman was doing a live show out here in Southern California, and I'm a huge Parks and Rec fan. So Ann and I decided that we were going to go see Nick Offerman, right? Nick Offerman live. And he's doing the show, and it's great. And about 20 minutes into the show, he goes, yeah, and I'm now in this, anybody of you heard this show called The Last of Us? And of course the audience cheers. And the next thing he says, are there any homophobes in the audience tonight? which I thought was really funny. Really funny. At which point, a couple of people did get up and walked out of the theater, which I guess those were the homophobes. And he goes, are there any homophobes here tonight? Anyway, Last of Us was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I think it surpassed Yellowstone for me as the best show on TV. I thought up till that point, Yellowstone was my absolute favorite show on TV at the moment. Last of Us kind of surpassed it. So there's that. All right. Next up, we've got Brock. Fredden writes, John, thank you for supporting trans pride. Listen, I'm just going to say this too. I don't support anybody, in the sense that I think everybody should just be allowed to live their lives without fear of repercussions for just being who they are. And that's why I will never understand people who have to base their lives on petty hate. You know, it's funny, in our movie sphere, we've seen politics get brought into it. The job of movies is to reflect the world we see and the world we envision and the world the way it is, right? And in our world, we have a lot of different types of people. You have straight people and gay people and white people and black people and all different types of people, right? And for over a century, Hollywood has had this really dark agenda of exclusion. And this agenda has been around for a very, very long time. And what we've seen in the last few years is, as filmmakers just make their movies reflecting the world the way it is, with all these different types of people, you've seen people start to inject their politics into online discourse, really trying to reassert the agenda of exclusion. And you see it all the time. There are some YouTube channels that are just completely based on this agenda, that movies are for straight white males, period. Movie leads should be straight white males. The main stories of movies should be about straight white males. And if you have any other type of person in the movie, or if the movie's about any other type of person, then everybody be afraid. And so you see these politics being brought into it, of trying to keep that agenda of exclusion in there. Now, again, I know I'm going to sound a lot like my dad, and I've said this a lot. I don't know what's happened. Now, granted, maybe this is the Italian in me, all right? Granted. And maybe I'm a little old-fashioned. Granted. I just want to know what happened to men. You know, I've said this before, I'll say it again. And as I get closer to the end of my career, I could really give a shit even less. I've never really cared much what people think of my opinion on things. I really don't care. I'm just going to say my opinion. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Hopefully we can still have a good discussion about it. But as I get closer to the end of my career, I care less and less and less about what people think about my opinion. But so I'll just say it. And again, maybe it's the old-fashioned Italian in me, but I don't know what happened to men. Because now men seem to have been replaced online by wimpy little sissy boys, children who don't know how to be men anymore. Because the way my father and my father's father taught me is that men are secure. Men are secure. Men don't feel threatened by other people. Right. And right now, that's what you see. You see a lot of cowardly insecurity online. I say, oh no, the gays are coming. Whatever shall we do? It's like, fucking be a man. Would you? You sniveling little piece of shit. Stop being a insufferable little child. Be a man. Other people being represented is not a threat to you unless you're a sniveling little coward. And I just see there's no men anymore. There just aren't men anymore. It's these snivel. All I see, or I shouldn't say all I see, that's hyperbole. But I just look out on the YouTube landscape these days, and I just see a lot of man-childs, like not really men, because they're so scared and so insecure and so afraid. And it's like, you know what men do? Men, my father and my father's father always taught you that men stand up for the little guy. And you know who the little guy in our culture is right now? Underrepresented people. There are people out there who never get to see themselves or be represented or even feel safe to live their lives the way they are. Real men stand up for those people. That's what the real man does. And a real man doesn't feel insecure or threatened by that. That's what real men do. And again, I understand maybe this is an outdated, old-fashioned Italian mindset of mine, but I don't know. I just think men should be men. And if men are being men, then men are standing up for underrepresented groups. Men are trying to encourage the taking down of old agendas, trying to hold other people down. That's what real men do. But what do I know? What do I know? That's just me going off on a little bit of a tangent. That's my father's voice. That's my father and my no-no's voice in my ear. What do I know? I just grew up doing road construction. All right. Let's see here. Next up, where are we at? Did I jump? Oh, okay. Here we go. Jaden Voss writes, maybe a dumb question. No such thing as dumb questions, Jaden. Jaden Voss writes, maybe a dumb question, but how early do CinemaCon tickets come out on sale each year? I really want to go next year. You had a blast there. Oh yeah, we do. You know what? I'm not quite sure how early they go on sale. I'm not quite sure how I usually buy my passes. Now, for a long time, I used to go as press, but I don't go to anything as press anymore. I don't go to, some of you guys know, I don't accept any press invitations to anything anymore. I still get them all the time. I show you guys the invites we get all the time, but I don't accept any invites to press screenings, press events, press junkets. I don't go to any of them. And I don't think all year. I think before the end of 2022, I stopped taking that stuff. So I used to go to CinemaCon as press, so I get free press passes to go. But as of last year, I just said, you know what? I'm not going to go as press pass anymore. But I'm just going to buy, because I'm technically in the industry, I'm just going to buy my passes to go. And so in the last 2 years that I've bought passes to go, I think I usually get them like 2 months before the event, but they're not cheap. They're not cheap. I think their prices are going up too, because I think they run about $1,300 a ticket, like per ticket. Plus, I think they might be cracking down a little bit because technically speaking, you have to come as a part representing a company. And your company, technically speaking, needs to be at least connected to the movie industry, right? And one of their categories is media. So I buy a pass as media connected to the industry. But even though that's technically the way it's supposed to be, there are still just people who are just like, you know what, I'm just going to buy a ticket to CinemaCon, and they just go. Now, they might start cracking down on that next year and start getting a little bit more strict about it. But as long as they don't, anybody can buy a pass to CinemaCon. Anybody can buy a pass to CinemaCon. It's just that it's expensive. I mean, that's the thing. Because not only do you got to drop like the $1,300 to go, then you got to get a room in Las Vegas for like 4 or 5 nights. And that's going to run you $1,000 to $2,000, maybe more. Then you got to have your food while you're out there, and that's not cheap. You got to travel there. It's not cheap. Yeah, but I think you can. The bottom line is I'm not really sure when those tickets go on sale. I'm not sure when they go on sale. It's, again, I've always got them about 2 months before, but it can be, for all I know, they could be on sale now. I'm not really sure, but they could be on sale now. All right. Last question of the day comes to us from Henry Lemoyne, who writes, favorite director? For me, it's Stanley Kubrick. And Stanley is fantastic, like absolutely phenomenal. We were just talking about Stanley Kubrick on the show the other day. But for me, it's Steven Spielberg. Again, not only for, like, when you look at Steven Spielberg's resume, the number of films of his that have won Best Picture, the number of films of his that have been nominated for Best Picture, the sheer diversity of the films that he does, everything from, from horror, thrill, period piece, drama, musical, whimsical, video game. Like, it's just, when you look at all that he is a filmmaker that's been able to do it all and do it all at Best Picture quality. To me, that's the greatest of all time. Now, again, that's just me. I'm not trying to convince you to agree with me. I'm just saying that's what I think and why I think it. You may have a totally different opinion, like Stanley Kubrick is a great thing. Some people might think the great Martin Scorsese. Some people might think Christopher Nolan. Some people might think Quentin Tarantino. Some people might, there's a lot of great answers. For me, it's Steven Spielberg, but that's just me. All right. And guys, it looks like that's it. We got through all the questions. That'll do it. We've got about 2 hours. That's okay. That'll do it for today's installment of Ask Me Anything. Thank you guys so much for being here and making the show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Once again, guys, let me do a little plug. I can't remember what I got up as an image there. Let me take that one down. That didn't work. There we go. Tomorrow is our movie club event, and I believe there are still tickets available if you want to see it in person, although there's not many left. Go ahead. There's a ticket link down in the description below. And if you don't live anywhere near the LA area and just want to watch the live pay-per-view stream, there's a link to that down there as well. And we hope that many of you guys will join us for that. And other than that, I'll be back again on Monday for the next installment of the John Campea Show. We can't wait to see you guys then. Guys, hey, listen, thank you so much for being here. And, listen, we talked a lot today about my impending and upcoming retirement. And I mentioned that I'm in the very fortunate and I'm very lucky that I'm in a position that I can get to retire whenever I want at this point. And I get to just keep doing this because I just want to keep doing it because it's fun. You guys are the ones who make it fun. I wouldn't still be doing this if it wasn't for you guys who make it fun. The interactions, the messages I get, all that kind of stuff. You're the reason I get out of bed in the morning and do what I do, because I love being a part of this community that you guys allow me to be a part of. And I appreciate it so much. And you're why I still do this. So thank you very, very much to this guy who's been doing this for almost 20 years. I'll probably plan some kind of little party for July 3rd or something like that. But you guys are the reason I still do this. So thank you so much for that. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.